Okay, well, welcome to the Karuna Life Podcast. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Gina Kitzmiller. I am an intuitive, I'm an author, I'm a Reiki Master Teacher, and I am founder of Trimatri Reiki. And today I have a special guest. I have Andrea Morrison from Balance from Within. And Andrea and I have had a few conversations off the recording, and we're having such a good one that I was like, hold on, let me start to record so we can get some of this down. But to start, Andrea, for people who don't know you, can you explain a little bit about who you are, where you're located, and what you do?
Absolutely. Like she said, Andrea Morrison, Balance from Within. It was a company I started a while ago after just being guided to do something different than my past career. And so I've incorporated craniosacral therapy, which in itself has its own source of energy work to it, and just kind of bringing my unique flair to it. So it's very different than anybody else's energy work, just not that it's better, it's just different. It's everybody has their unique sense of that. So I would call myself an energy healer. And at the same time, I hate that word healer because I'm not the one doing it. I am just providing the space and guidance for my clients to do that so that they experience their own healing. So yeah, I guess that's what I would call myself. I'm a little bit of a mutt. I can do a little bit of everything.
That it makes sense to me. I think a lot of people tend to piece things together now. I think there's a theme around that. So you are located in Florida, correct?
I am. I'm in Sebring, Florida, which is nobody knows where that is unless they're into racing. So we're about two-thirds of the way down the state and directly in the middle.
Perfect. And so the reason why that I came across Andrea is that she was recommended to me from someone else who had been on the podcast, and I value her recommendation. And so as soon as I started talking with Andrea, we hit it off, and I was like, okay, this will be a good conversation for sure. We have a lot of similar beliefs on things. So let me see where, because I know there's so many different things that we could tackle. So first, when we're talking about craniosacral therapy, I've had it done. I'm not trained in it, but can you explain a little bit about what that is to someone who's never heard of craniosacral therapy?
Absolutely. What craniosacral therapy does is it resets the central nervous system. So many of us go in fight or flight or freeze mode, a good 12 to 18 hours a day. And so, with these very, very gentle movements around the head and the spine, what we're doing is working with the fascia and just allowing that to relax enough so that your body can get back into that deep breathing, easy flow mode within the brain, the spinal cord, the heart, everything just slows back down to that original point of peace. And people have found that once they allow that to happen in their body, now they're in control of their own healing. So you have headaches, this will work for your headaches. You have whatever medical condition you have, this helps with that because it puts your body back into the programming that it needs to get back to that homeostasis period. That's what our bodies are designed to do, is to heal themselves, and we so often get in the way of that. So sometimes just these sessions of like 1 hour puts you back into the, oh, okay, finally I'm rebuilding again correctly or better. And it's super interesting to watch people go through these transformations because they walk in just all like and they leave and they're kind of holding on to the walls as they're walking down the hallway going like, where am I?
That sounds delightful right now for so many of us, right? And when we talk about craniosacral therapy, I remember when I had it done, it didn't really mesh to me with energy healings. I remember the practitioner was up at my head, but I could feel stuff moving like down by my feet, which was really cool. So would you say it's closer to energy work? Is it closer to massage when you're talking about fascia? Is it this beautiful blend of both? Like, how
Say
would you describe it?
yes. Yes. I would say
Okay.
it's this beautiful blend of both of them because when you're working with the fascia throughout the body, that is like it's a three-dimensional cobweb. Have you ever seen one of those super thick ones in the corner where it's like there's no path through it? And that connects everything to everything, your organs to your to the bones, to the nerves, to the muscles, everything is connected. And I like using that cobweb analogy of it because, like you said, when somebody was working on your head, you could feel it on your feet. It's almost like when there is a spider in that cobweb and something is, tickling it over here, that the spider feels it over here. So everything being connected, when you do a little release in the head, it releases all the way down that strand and then just lets it go. And fascia doesn't want to be manhandled. So you can't get in there and just start knuckling it because it'll cinch back up on you. And it really needs to be like coaxed or persuaded very
That's
gently.
interesting. Yes, when I did yoga training years ago, they would talk a lot about the fascia and how, if I recall correctly, they would say that actually emotional, like tension and things and trauma and things can kind of almost like it feels like it gets stuck. So it's like in the fascia. Would you say that that's correct?
Absolutely. When you have any type of injury, whether it's emotional, physical, even spiritual injuries, these are things that you carry with you all the time. And knowing, or if you do know or understand that you are an eternal being, this stuff comes all the way down. Like you get traumas, whether it's physical, emotional, or spiritual, all through your path. And sometimes we carry that with us and it starts to kind of bog us down. It's like every trauma that you have, you take a rock and you throw it in this backpack behind you and you don't deal with it. And eventually that backpack gets so full that it just kind of knocks you right on your back. So what we're kind of doing is we're dumping that backpack and saying, here you go, brand new backpack on your way.
That's funny because I usually use the analogy of a house and I say that we all have like a back room and we try to stuff everything that we don't want to deal with in the back room. And then eventually it's starting to overflow and like come out. And so we just have to go in and do some spring cleaning, just kind of move some things out so that you kind of have the space then to live. But I like the backpack one too. I think that's a good way because you can feel that sometimes in people's energy fields. It's the
Yes.
heaviness, it's the weight. I carry the weight of the world on my shoulders. I've got so much weighing me down that I don't feel as light as I should. And then I think when you add just how busy life is, just how stressful that we have this, even in the collective, this kind of tightness, right? In the field of the stress that's coming in, much less what's going on in our own day to day lives. So it's like the combination of both can make us feel pretty weighted down and feel like we're in that fight or flight.
And I think when each one of us empty our backpacks or clean out our closet, it makes it lighter for the whole. And it allows us our own authenticity to then help others become more authentic with who they are and stop judging themselves and all
I
those things
agree.
we do.
Yeah. And I think sometimes with the state of the world, we can feel really helpless, of like, I don't know how I can fix all of this. And I always think, okay, but if I can just start with me and kind of clear through my stuff and then with my relationships and try to work here, then at least I'm still contributing, right? The energy is still shifting because I'm shifting in my own day to day life. And I think that is incredibly helpful on the energetic level.
Yes, absolutely.
Mhm.
100%.
So we were talking previously about like different types of clients and we were talking about the victim mindset. So can you describe a little bit like what is the victim mindset and how do you see that affect people in real life?
Well, I think when people are in a victim mindset, it takes away their power. And, when we were children growing up, our we were being kind of programmed into this whole universe that we weren't quite prepared for, but by very well-meaning people, loving people, parents, they want you to fit in, they want all of this stuff. And so when we would get reprimanded for doing something outside the box or that didn't fit in with their curriculum, you would get scolded, and nobody wants to feel that way. So now we shift to, well, it wasn't my fault. So if it wasn't my fault, I'm not responsible for that. I'm still in the good graces. And I think that we kind of take on that victim mindset throughout our life because if it's not my fault, I don't have to fix it. And one of the most powerful things that I ever heard in my own journey, I think it was Abraham Hicks said, everything in your experience, you have brought that to yourself. Like you brought that in, you called that in. And at first I was mad. I was like, never listening to this again. And then I thought about it and I was like, okay, hang on. So if I brought all this into me, that means that I can control what I'm bringing into me. So I don't have to be upset with myself where, why did I bring in this fight or this car accident or divorce or whatever it was? I can actually bring in the things that help me. And in that moment, I felt so empowered that there was nothing that could hold me back. And, not that I had climbed the mountains already, it's still a work in progress, obviously. Um, but when you give yourself that empowerment, you have the ability to change it. So people, they don't quite understand that they're also calling in all these injuries and diseases and whatever these things are that they don't want. And so what I'm there to is to help them kind of figure out how they are responsible for it and how they can and change it. It's it's a miracle when people start doing it. I see clients, and then once they start doing the work, they completely come back around and they look different. They're like glowing. It's absolutely incredible once people take that ownership and get out of that victim mentality.
Sounds really powerful. It also probably can be a little bit difficult, I would imagine. So, like, as I was listening to you and you were like, you're responsible, I can imagine that probably brings up a lot of resistance in people that would say, how dare you say that, right? You don't know my
Yes.
childhood. You don't know my
Thank
parents.
you.
That wasn't, something that I would have chosen. So, how do you help them work through that piece to it? Because to me, that almost seems like that would be one of the most difficult things to kind of overcome when you're working with someone, because I would assume it would be met with a little bit of resistance.
Absolutely. And the ones that truly want to change, they're open to it. They're like, okay, my mind is open. Give me a different perspective. And in order for this to work, you have to be able to examine your own belief system. And our belief systems are subject to change. They just are. If it's not working for you, you can change it. Now, also on the other end of this is you have to understand that you are an eternal being, that you are an eternal source. So you knew exactly what you were doing when you came into this world. You chose the people you came in with, you chose the time that you came in with. And that is another one that's hard to hear because it's like, seriously, why would I come into, say, alcoholic, abusive parents or neglectful, whatever it is? They were there to teach you. And these, let's just call them complete mess ups in this physical thing, they are there to teach you. They're there to give you this master class learning. And it's not easy at times. It's not. It will break a person. And if you know that you are in charge and you are empowered, you can get through this. Everybody can get through it. And there's no race. You have eternity to figure it out because being eternal beings, our little life here is just a blip. To not allow or not getting down on yourself, judging yourself like, oh, I didn't do that right. I should have done this. I should have done that. Let it go. Let it go. That was a blip. You've learned something from that situation. So now we're going to move forward.
That can be really helpful, I think, for people, because when you were talking about like contracts, I think sometimes people, if we talk about it in terms of if I'm seeing a client and intuitively, you can sometimes pick up that there's a pattern. This is something that they brought in, and people will say, well, I would never have chosen those parents. And I always like to point out that people who have difficult circumstances, those typically, in my mind, are not new souls. Those are the souls that have been here before, that know what they're doing, that said, I can tackle that really hard situation. I might have things that most of us would have said that we would have never asked for, right, as our human self. But yet the soul said, I know I can handle that. I know that there's going to be growth in this for me. There's an experience. And I think that's ultimately what the soul is trying to do here in Earth School. We're trying to learn, we're trying to have experiences, we're trying to master different things. And if everyone's life was just this perfectly flat, beautiful pond with no ripples, That might be what we would like to have, right, as a vacation life, but that's not a life that's going to give you a lot of learning. It's those harder situations that most of us say, once we get through it, it's not that we want to go through it, but we can look back and say, gosh, there was some really big experiences there. Or I learned this about myself. I learned this about, relationships and things of that nature. So it does kind of still shift you back into a state of empowerment, because if I'm empowered, I can take a look at that and say, yeah, there were some real gifts there, rather than being the victim of this happened to me and I feel like I'm getting kind of pushed down or not able to overcome it. It's a very big mind shift, I think, for a lot of
It
people.
is. And you understand that in training, even in military training, they go on a simulator. So here's a situation, deal with it, and then let's check the data afterwards and be like, okay, I could have done this differently. I will do it differently next time because it will come back around. You'll be in that simulator again.
Yes, this is true, right? And if it's wish we could all have a simulator then to be like, oh, let me see, that's part of what I think we sometimes project out for the in the future, right? If I can
Yes.
feel like I can experience what I'm worried about,
Mhm.
then I can try to figure it out. And unfortunately, at least for me, I know that it doesn't really work, because it doesn't really prevent you from whatever it is you're trying to avoid when that situation actually
Right.
happens, if it's actually going to happen.
Right.
So I think it's just the difficulty of trying to stay present. We were talking, I think, before too, about how oftentimes we can kind of judge other people. Like, so do you tend to see that with people? And what's your thoughts on how we judge others?
The judging others and ourselves, because you can't judge other people if you're not judging yourself already. So if you can cut down on that, that leaves your entire world open to do whatever you want. If you know in your mind that I'm not ever going to judge myself for anything that I do, I mean, the world is your oyster right there, because you could trawl through whatever you're doing and just feel like, that was fun, and just leave it at that. We judge people because of the past programmings that we've taken on as children into adulthood, because we don't want to be ostracized. We want to fit in. We want everybody to like us and, oh, love, love, love. And that doesn't happen, because then we start picking it apart to be like, okay, well, now I won't be like them, or they're not like me. So I'm not going to talk to them. I don't like the shirt she's wearing. I don't like his shoes, just stupid little stuff. But the more that you do that, the more you polarize yourself from everybody else. If you can live completely authentic, never worrying about being judged, how miraculous would that be? And I think we're getting a lot more children that are being born now that are doing exactly that. Like, it's the perfect example for us to just be whoever we want to be and not care about anything that anybody's saying. Can you imagine that level of freedom and empowerment?
Yeah, and I often think that when we're doing that, we're sending our energy out. So if I'm worried about something you're doing, right, or I don't like that plant that she has behind her, which I love, but if I'm throwing my energy behind you or trying to figure out, it's really kind of a diversion from something that's probably going on with me. So for myself, I've noticed that if my like inner critic is starting to really get a little bit loud, that's usually my indicator of, okay, there's something that I'm not looking at within myself, because there's a reason why I'm trying to put my energy on people around me or to make judgments. And if I can pull back and say, let's meditate, let's journal, let's take a look. What is that thing that's getting triggered here by this? Almost always, I can't think of any time that it was really what the other person was doing. It almost always is that mirror back to something that's going on within me. So,
Absolutely. And we do that with every emotion too, not just judgment. If that's all I'm filled with, that's all I'm going to put out there, is judging everybody, because now it's because I'm judging myself. If I'm angry, I'm going to be angry at everybody. I'm going to be spitting anger at everybody. And the same goes with the flip side of unconditional love. If I'm feeling unconditional love, that's what I'm going to be spreading to everybody else. So, and we know that we get to choose all of our emotions. That's another one that's hard to hear too.
so I'm wondering, like, so for someone who's like, I don't even know where to start, like, where would you suggest that they start and how they're like looking at their own thoughts or
Yes, very like baby steps, no action really, just observing, just being a quiet observer of your own words, your own thoughts, and the world around you, and not making any judgments on that. Just sitting with it. Don't label something as good or bad. Like if somebody bumped you in the supermarket, you don't go, oh, that was bad, or there's a jerk. Let it go. Like just observe what's going on and start to see people from who they are at the soul level. Like, I don't know if it was you that we had talked about where, like, if you can see everybody as the baby, the infant image of themselves, you can't hate a baby. Like, you have to just love them. You just want to go. And if you can see that in everybody, regardless of the journey they've had so far, there's still that soul being in there that is nothing but unconditional love. They have gotten a little jaded maybe along their journey, but there still is that point of love. And if you can just zoom in on that and wipe away everything else from them, it's absolutely beautiful. And you'll see people in a whole new light.
I think I tend to see people not necessarily as babies, but as like little kids, because to me, that's just like this little 3-year-old that is just, they're going to have their own experiences. And I think that when you start to really kind of expand your viewpoint and to understand that everyone has had loss, right? And if we can start to see each other as fellow humans going through their own things, I think the world would be a much kinder place. So we had talked, I remember that you had kind of a funny story about, I'm changing gears here, about when you first came into this. So you had kind of your own separate professional life before you came into doing this type of work. And can you talk a little bit? Because I think it's interesting to hear the journey from people who kind of find what really lights them up and in a different like career path. Okay.
So what had happened was I was a dental hygienist for I think like 23 years. And I loved that profession. It became something that I just really didn't want to do anymore. And I was working at an office at the time, and I was trying to figure out a way. And this is when I was beginning to learn about manifesting. And so I was like, oh, I got to figure out a way that I can do this newfound energy work and still have money coming in because, I was half the income. So I was sitting there one day and I was just like going, oh, this has got to work. It just seems like I have all this guided intuition. I came up with my business name. It just all flowed. The synchronicity just flowed. And my husband and I at the time were out with another couple for dinner. And all of a sudden I get this text on my phone and it was from my boss and it said, check your email. And I was like, okay. So I checked my email. He fired me through email.
So
And I had been working here for
through
a little while
email.
through an email.
Huh.
And I thought, oh, that's interesting. So I told everybody at the table and they're like, oh my gosh, oh, we're so sorry. And I was like, I have unemployment coming in now. So I kind of have manifested that I still have a little bit of money coming in so that I can get this up and going. And once you sit back and you look at that, I mean, it's still bringing me chills. You sit back and look at it and it's like, oh, that worked out perfectly. And I didn't have anything to do with it, really, besides wanting that idea.
That's a good point about mindset too, because you could have taken that experience and become very victim, right? Oh my gosh, I can't
Absolutely.
believe I got fired. This is horrible. It must be me. I'm not going to do anything. And instead, you flipped it and took it as this is an advantage, this is an opportunity, and that the universe is trying to support me rather than kind of hold me back. So, was that, and it sounds like for you, that was just kind of instantaneous. Like you didn't, was there that little bit of fear,
Yeah.
like in the background, like, oh, like I don't know how this is going to go?
Yeah. Because back in the day, and I don't know what it is now, but hygienists made pretty good money. And that terrified me to have to go back to when I was, in my early 20s and couldn't rub two nickels together. And I thought, oh my God, I can't do that again. I just can't do that again. So there is that moment of panic. But when we talked about, I get to choose how I feel about this situation, it's like, I got through that. I got through barely being able to rub two nickels together. So I'm here now. Look at how great I'm doing now. This is just going to be one of these transitional periods. And let's just see where it goes. can I sit here and be non-judgmental about it and not put good or bad on it and just see what happens? Um, there's just this, it's almost a thrill ride if you look at it that way. But if you get down and you start victimizing, oh, yeah, they're a jerk, they just, that's not going to do you any good. And you start to feel it, and then it drags you down. And once you start paying attention to these emotions, it's like, yeah, I could choose better for myself. I could choose to be happy about a situation.
Yeah, and I think it would lower your vibration if you are feeling,
Absolutely.
negativity and just that poor me and, how can this happen? And I see people get bumped from their jobs a lot. And I think oftentimes that's the universe where they're trying to nudge you in one direction. So I think it's interesting that you had the name, like they were already dropping things in of this path. And I think sometimes if we're not in quite the right timeline or like where we're supposed to be, we get kind of bumped. And it's like, okay, so actually, I really needed her over there. So I'm going to have this person come in who's difficult at work that like bumps you. And ultimately, it is for the greater good, right? Like that we're going to move you so that you can get in this current or this path that we're trying to get you on. And I've seen that happen time and time again with people. It doesn't mean that it's easy when it happens and it can hurt, right? But yet there's usually something where it's trying to lead you into something even better. And I think it's really interesting that you recognized it so quickly and was able to shift into that mindset of like, okay, I know this is happening for a reason. Let's see where this path is now going to go.
Right. And when you're staying in that higher vibration, like you're talking about, synchronicities just come together. Like your path forms in front of you when you can stay in this higher vibrational sense. You stay in the happy and the joy and the love. And, it sounds kind of crazy because we can't do that 24 hours a day. But even if you dip down into that, oh, I'm angry and, pissed off about this, that, or the other thing, it's okay to feel those things. Just don't become those things. You have to just, okay, I'm angry. This is why, and I can push it away. And now what's my next emotion? So you kind of can play the game, and it can be fun if you allow it to be fun.
This is true. I think that that's a really good point. And I think it's a good point about how it doesn't mean that you don't allow the emotion to come up that is coming up because you might be really, gosh, I'm a little bit fearful or I'm angry. So it's not about suppressing it. It is about not pulling that and then creating your whole story around that this happened. And so that's what you'll see people do is they take it and it's really, I think the narrative, it's the story that you start telling yourself rather than I'm just going to have the emotion. And maybe in this moment, I'm really angry and I let it come up and out. And then I return back into that state of trust. Okay, yeah, I'm feeling angry and I trust. I trust that the universe is going to meet this, that something good's going to come out of it, even if I don't see exactly what that is. I trust it's that support that I have. And if you can
Yes.
stay up in that vibration, it doesn't mean that some of these things are easy, because I would say for a lot of us, when we have those kind of peaks and valleys and stuff, it's not easy to go through, but it is kind of owning your truth and owning that the trust that you are supported, even if you don't see how it's going to come. And then I think that itself raises your vibration so that you can see the synchronicities, the miracles, the chance meetings of how that's going to unfold.
Without the valleys, the peaks wouldn't be so yummy.
This is true.
You have to have that.
So let me ask you this, because for a lot of people who come into doing more intuitive work, there's that fear of people judging me or I can't say that. Did you have any of that, or were you just putting your foot on the gas pedal and you were going into this new career path?
I would like to say I just put my foot on the gas pedal and ran with it, but in the beginning, there was a lot of, am I doing this right? Am I really hearing or feeling intuition, or am I just making this up in my head? And so in the beginning, it was just kind of feeling my way through it. And the more that my clients would talk to me, the easier that was because I would have something that I'm feeling or thinking, and I would ask them a question about something, like, do you have, is your dad real close to you? And they would be like, oh my gosh, my dad's my biggest cheer. I was like, okay, we're on the right path. So it was so helpful to have clients in the beginning that were willing to walk this journey with me because there was a lot of stuff going on in my head saying, I would rebound back and say, oh my God, I gave up this $5, paying position and blah, blah. And I was like, no, we're going to keep going forward. We're going to keep going forward. But to have people that'll work with you is absolutely incredible. And yeah, I didn't have, 100% of my clients didn't work with me. They probably came in and went, whack job. And I was like, okay with that eventually. In the beginning, I was like, oh gosh, I'm hated. I'm a pariah. I mean, people will call you witch and evil. And I was like, oh God, there's another lifetime. Side note.
It's very true.
Yeah. And it's just like, okay, but this is something I have to work past. If this person came in and is calling me these names, I have to decide, am I going to own what they think? Or am I going to stay true to me and my calling, my passion, whatever it is? Because I'm calling these people in to challenge my own boundaries that I've set. Because I know in my soul that this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. This is my path. So I'm going to call them in to see, like, knock, knock, Andrea. Are you sure?
This is true. That's funny. Yeah. And I think it's interesting because I had all of those same fears. And then I laugh because for me, when I finally was like, okay, I'm going to let people know this is, I'm intuitive. I talk with my spirit guides and those in spirit. And I was waiting literally with almost subconsciously thinking they're going to show up on my doorstep with, pitchforks and nothing happened for me at all. Like it was like crickets. It was almost like disappointing where I was kind of like, wow, I thought people would have a bigger reaction and I got nothing, which kind of made me laugh and said, well, gosh, Gina, you thought, people were even really concerned about what you're doing and they're not. So it was like, I kind of had to laugh at myself. And because I didn't have any of that. And so it's interesting to me that you did, and it's a
Right.
different experience.
And
So,
it was one of my patterns of my own self-doubt that I had to bring that in to build up my self-confidence in it. You probably already had all the self-confidence.
well, I was laughing because in my mind, I think they were letting my ego know of like, people aren't really that concerned, Gina, like it's okay. And so, which was great. It was a wonderful
Yes.
ego check of like, it's not that big, people
Right.
aren't that concerned. And so I was like, okay, this is good. I can handle that. But it really wasn't this big that I had it built up in my mind and maybe people do say stuff. Maybe they do behind my back. I don't know. But I still love what I do and it makes me really happy. And so I was always like, well, this feels really good to me, right? So I'm going to continue what feels really good. And if it's not their cup of tea, it's not their cup of
Right.
tea. And I think the people that are led to this type of work, that are led to us, they're going to be people that resonate. I have very few people that come to me that aren't in resonance. It's like that's a very, very small because I think they get guided to who they're meant to get guided to, almost on the soul level, because the energy, like is going to attract like. And if it's someone who's completely outside of that, it's not right or wrong, like you said, it's just different. So they're going to be led to the providers that would be most helpful
Right.
for them based on
And,
their energy
and some
resonance.
of those stories are absolutely fascinating. Like you could not have made it up. The way that people have said how they found me, I'm like, what? Like, there's no way. Like, every little thing had to fall into place for you to find me and me to find you, because these tend to be a lot of the people that I'm like, oh, we just like connect, where you just have this perfect union of healing. It's incredible. And I love hearing those stories.
I do too. It's just such a fun, nothing isn't coming to my head right now, but I was like, I love hearing about the synchronicities and they'll say like, oh gosh, this and it's like, I love sometimes when they don't listen and then it like comes up again. And it's like, we are
Yes.
trying to get you here. And so it just helps you really trust the people that are, called to you. And I would say this to anyone and whatever you're doing, if you're an intuitive or an energy healer, trust that the people that come to you are meant to find you and the ones that aren't are just going to filter out. And if you have that trust, then I know if Andrea emailed me and scheduled an appointment, I know there's a reason why she's there and that there's a reason why we're going to work together. And if not, then it just wasn't going to be in resonance. So it kind of helps take the pressure off, I think, sometimes of I have to, and people feel that, I think, when they're newer into energy healing or these types of fields.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. I don't know if there's a question in this, Andrea, but my guides are kind of dropping in. And it did strike me when you were talking about it earlier, when you were talking about how you hold space for people in that higher vibration, which is what I think I do as well. And what kind of struck me about it was the similarity and also that like we don't feel like we're the ones doing the healing. I feel like sometimes just even being in the presence of someone who can hold that higher vibrational state, that the other person's energy field automatically starts to read and almost like calibrate to like, oh, okay, like, and then that can help to start to move things. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. And I always think of the analogy as, when you're really hurting and you walk into the room and there's this loving person in your family that just has their arms out and they're like, oh, honey, come here. And they give you that hug. They're bringing this higher sense or this more expanded sense of vibration to somebody who is really down low. And when you are that low feeling person, when you're wrapped in that embrace, you can't help but elevate. It's like, I'm safe. Everything is okay. You actually elevate. So that's kind of what I'm talking about with, we hold space. We're holding this higher vibration for somebody who is maybe not of that vibration. And nor do I don't walk around 24 hours a day in that level of vibration because first
I
of all,
wish,
nothing
right?
will get done. Yeah. But it's a great space to be in. That super high level. It's kind of like you're talking about, oh, that would be a vacation. And it is, it's a great vacation. You're living in this wonderful, all-encompassing love. But if you're in that all the time, I don't think that we are working on the things that we came here to work on. The changes that we were trying to make or the expansion that we're trying to make. If we wanted to stay in this all-encompassing love, we would have passed away by now. We all come in for this time frame and there's things that we have to work on. And if we were supposed to be in this all-encompassing love 24/7, we wouldn't be in this physical state anymore.
I agree. I also think that if I was constantly in that state, because it does feel wonderful when you're in it, that it would be hard to relate to people, right? And I think my job, and I think you might agree, it's like I'm here to help be who I am and be able to share my experiences. So I was going to say that when you were talking about that we can't stay at that higher level, I always like to one let people know that we have our own human lives. And you were saying that if someone didn't really need to have the emotions and was always in that higher state, most of the time they're going to exit out at that point because their life path has then been completed. I'm sure there's a few people like the Dalai Lama, and people that have managed to stay in that. But for most of us, I think we are still here to have a human experience. And I also think that's what makes us relatable to other people is that we can understand the victim mindset because we all have it. There's still things that I'm working through that come up as it's ready to be healed. And so I get very cautious around people that claim I'm healed and I'm a healer and I'm going to heal you. There's a lot of ego in that.
Yeah.
And that's usually a red flag for me to say, oh, let's take a look there because those are the people that make me very wary where I go, I think there's a lot going on in their own backpack or back room, but now they've kind of bypassed it and they're trying to say that they've healed everything. Those are the ones that make me kind of sit back and take note and say, I think I'll pass, because I think that's not very true or authentic to the most of us who are living in the world.
You probably experience this too when you're in your sessions. When a client comes in, there is zero judgment. There is absolutely zero judgment because they're opening themselves up to their own authenticity. And the last thing that I could ever even see is any of their faults, I guess we'll just call them for lack of a better word. But we all have past, we all have stuff that's going on. And if I can just open up to all of that and have somebody say, I completely understand. And you've got this. Here's how we're going to take little steps in working through some of this shadow work. That's kind of the big buzzword now. But just dealing with some of the parts of us that we want to change. So Yeah.
Do you like the term shadow work? For some reason, I'm not a big fan of the term shadow
No,
work. It
it just
feels
never hit me
dark.
right.
It
It never
doesn't.
hit me
I'm
right.
like, I know, but I haven't come up. I always kind of say the inner work or kind of like inner maybe resistance or thought patterns. But for some reason, shadow work is just a term that I kind of do this too. And so
Right.
I just, when you said it, I
And
was
I
like, oh,
understand it. I mean,
it is a
and
buzzword right now,
yeah,
though.
and
Yeah.
the shadow part of us is it's necessary. Like we have to have these shadow pieces, but they don't run the show. And what's happening when people come in is that their shadows are running the show. And what we do is it's a beautiful, delicate dance with the shadow, and we give them a seat at the table to help us make decisions, but they're not running the show. And it's learning their strengths, learning what they're there to teach us. It's like, okay, you do have merit. You can sit at this table because I'm going to call on you if, I start going down that road again. You're going to bring somebody in front of me to say, is this really what you want to do, Andrea? And here will come a toxic person, abusive, neglectful, whatever it is. Um, they do deserve a seat at that table.
And I think that for some reason, and I don't know if you've got this as well, but I think this year in particular, the year of the fire horse that everyone's talking about, one of the things that my guide showed me was that some of those karmic patterns or resistance that we have, I would say maybe shadow self areas, I guess you could call it, they're going to come back up this year. And so I think that we're going to see people come up either from our past or it's going to be someone that's representing that dynamic or that area that's asking to be healed. And oftentimes I think that has to be around like our own self-power, like owning our truth, speaking our truth. And so it'll be interesting to see how this year kind of plays out. But I suspect that people are going to see some patterns. And if you're aware, and not judgmental, you can go, oh, I know why that's coming up. I
Yes.
recognize that dynamic. And you can choose to do something different. And when you do that, I'm getting a chill, you're going to break that karmic pattern. And then it's going to go across all of the lifetimes. So there's some real work and opportunity this year, in particular, around some of those patterns.
Absolutely. And from what I've been seeing happening with some people, it every time the pattern circles back around, it's going to level up a little bit. Like it's going to be a little bit more difficult. Like sometimes it might start out with a friendship, or it's just say somebody at work that has crossed your boundary, and you're like, okay, nope, I have set a boundary with you. This is done, and it's steadfast. Now the universe and its ultimate wisdom is going to circle back around, and this is going to be your best friend now. And you have to hold that boundary with your best friend. Okay, let's say you've done that. It's going to circle back around. Now it's going to be a family member. You have to so it kind of levels up in it because you're being tested to not, and I hate the word tested too, but you're basically solidifying your boundaries and it's giving you opportunities to do that. That's the shadow person. That's why they have a seat at that
Yes.
table because they're like, all right, you ready? I got one for you.
Yes, and I think it's to make sure, did you really learn the lesson? And I think
Right.
sometimes people will say, "Gosh, I can't believe I'm dealing with this again. Like I must not have learned the lesson." But I think oftentimes no, it's that you have, and now it's coming back up to really see, let's show us, right? Did you really get the lesson? And we're going to level it up to see how you react, how you respond. And sometimes I tell people too, it may be that you don't respond like as quickly as you'd like, but you do get there. You get there faster than you did the
Yes.
first time. Maybe you had a bad relationship and the last one you were in for 10 years, and maybe you got into another one, but you caught it in that first year and you cut it off. That's still incredible growth. So instead of beating yourself up saying, I should have left 8 months ago, congratulate yourself like, yeah, but I actually learned that. I learned that so much
Yep.
quicker and took action than I would have previously. And I think people often
Yeah.
don't give themselves credit for that.
And adding to that, when you do pick up that pattern, usually you're in this state of just, oh, everything's awful right now. If you can pivot that and say, I recognized it. Okay, I'm going to jump into the simulator again because I've learned what I did wrong in the last flight. So this is what I'm going to do is I'm excited for it. It's like, bring it on. Bring it on, shadow guy at the table. I got this.
Love that. Now I get the simulator. Sorry, I'm an introvert. Now it just clicked. I'm like, now I get what she's talking about. So it's like the excitement of knowing. So you were saying that life is kind of the simulator, and that life is going to bring you these circumstances. And if you can get excited about it, then it's like on the soul level, the soul's like, I'm going into the simulator and here's what we have up
Yep.
today. I'm really excited that this is the training program I'm in
Yes.
right now.
Yes.
Is that what you were saying?
Exactly.
Slowly but surely, Andrea, I got it.
Well, and the cool thing is, this is something I've learned just recently, is that when you're in that state of chaos where your world is crumbling, I used to just lay it on the couch and just crumble with it. And now I've started to learn that when things are crumbling, that means that something good is coming on the other side, because you have to tear down in order to build something different. So when you can switch that mindset in the middle of the crumble and be like, oh, okay, well, I didn't like that wall anyway, and say, this is what I'm going to put in its place. That changes everything going forward. That sets your momentum heading forward.
Oh, yeah. I would say it shifts your energy level, just even into the cellular level. You're shifting that timeline on where you want to go. That's incredibly powerful. And I love that description of like, okay, the wall's down. What else do I want to put here? And
Right.
if we can come into that state, that's such an empowered state to be in, then you're absolutely going to call in the highest timeline because you're calling it in, you are owning it. Something good is going to come out of this. And then when you start to look for it, I think you magnetize it towards you, you're able to recognize it. And I think that the more we have those smaller experiences, because they're not always on that big scale,
Right.
that hopefully then when we get in the simulator and they're like, okay, we're really going for the challenge today, then you are able to come from that more empowered state.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Love that. Perfect. So I'm wondering when you talk about when you're working with clients, is there like a particular like type of client that you just like love to work with?
Absolutely. I love the ones who have started their awakening process. They're not still blaming everything on the outside world. They know that there's somewhere within them that can heal whatever it is that they're going through. Those, oh, we have such a good time. Those are the best sessions ever. The hard ones for me are the ones that come in and they go, oh, fix my shoulder. And it's like, oh, it's gonna be a lot of talk and a lot of hand puppets. So the ones that are really open to their awakening, those are great because they springboard into whatever's next for them. I mean, their breadcrumb trail just appears before them once they actually have this experience. They don't feel insane or crazy by talking about this. Um, that is one of the biggest things I found with some of my clients that have awakened. They're like, okay, so I have this awakening. I don't have anybody to talk to about any of this. My family thinks I'm crazy. My friends are like, what is up? When I talk to random people, they look at me like I have three heads. So it's like, who do I talk to about this stuff? And we're finding that so many more people, I mean, once you get turned on to this, you find podcasts like yours that open all of this up, this whole new world for you. And it is a new world. Like the old earth is going to be gone for you because like we said, you can't unlearn the ABCs either. You know them already. So now you've awakened to this next level. You can't unlearn this next level. And I
This is
hate the
true.
level.
I know my guides always we kind of laugh but
Yeah.
you're not saying one's better than the other. It's
Right.
just a shift,
It's
right?
just a
It's just
shift.
like it's just a shift. And I do think that more and more people are going to be kind of talking about like the world of intuition and the metaphysical world. And I think that's really going to start to expand. But I always tell people you need to find kind of your tribe. And if you're not
Absolutely.
sure, like start to look around and see what's in your community. You might find something online and you can find that support because when you can have those conversations, it's really rewarding. And I always say, like, you don't need to have all of your friends believe the same way you do, but it's
Right.
always great to even have just one or two that you can talk to. I had this experience and that they can validate it for you or just listen. But I always caution that it's not always going to be like all of your family or maybe your friends that you've had since high school. That's great if that happens, but I don't talk to the vast majority of people in my life about all of this stuff. But yet I have my few inner circle, and that for me is all I need. So it's like, if you can set the expectation, I just need one or two people and see how it goes from there. Usually the universe can provide those people that come in through,
Radar.
synchronicities. Yeah. And it's really great when you find those people that are like minded.
Yeah. Then when we moved to Sebring, and my husband and I were like, all right, show us our tribe. we'll wait for them to show up. And they did. And it was so cool how we met each and every person. It's like you can't make that up. And they all show
Yes.
up.
It's just they do. Just trust. And I always say your soul tribe, your soul family is out there. And as you set your intention, as your vibration rises, like ask to have that and start sending that call out. And I think when you send the call out, then it's like they can hopefully start to receive it and then again get magnetized towards you. So it can be really, really helpful. So, Andrea, do you want to tell people? I know we're probably coming up on time here. Do you want to tell people where they can find you and your work and anything that you would like to share?
Absolutely.
Like
You
may
can
like
always,
maybe a potential podcast?
yeah, actually. And I am so excited about doing this podcast right now. I cannot stifle this excitement. But these are the things that I'm going to talk about for these people who are just going through the awakenings. So that one, it's Balance from Within. It's the business again, and it's going to be on Spotify, hopefully within the next couple of weeks. But my website is mybalancefromwithin.com. And otherwise, I'm in Sebring.
So you
Yes,
have the new podcast that's going to be coming out. So Balance from Within on Spotify. And once you have that, you can send me the link and then I will add it to the
absolutely.
show notes. And I will certainly put a link to your website
Yeah,
along with your contact information so that people know how to get a hold of you. But
absolutely.
this was a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for coming on. For listeners, I think this is maybe our third attempt because every time we would go to record, construction trucks would show up in one of our neighborhoods and my Wi-Fi was down. So this was like the third time's a charm to finally get this recorded. So I'm excited
Absolutely.
about that.
Me too.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you
Okay.
so much for having me on here. And I would love to, once I get mine going too, I would love to have you on too. And we can
I would
do
love
this
that.
again because I had a blast.
Oh my gosh, this is really fun. Thank you so much. So, for anyone who is listening to this podcast, please consider leaving us 5 stars and following would be really grateful. And then you can check out Andrea's. And then, as always, if you have any recommendations or topics that you would like for me to cover, feel free to email me, Gina at the Karuna Life. I would be happy to hear them. So, take care and have a great rest of your day.